Good morning, everyone. I'm your host, Suchi, and welcome to AI Minute Mondays. I've been a data enthusiast for as long as I can remember, from the early SQL Server days right up until now. So, this episode is dedicated to data, probably the most critical part of any AI system. We've all heard about models, breakthroughs, and algorithms, but today let's dive into something far deeper. What makes these AI systems run effectively, which is basically the data behind it. And any AI system is only as good as the data that it relies on. So let's dive in. The first thing that we're going to talk about is data relevance. When you're building an AI system, you need to think about where your data really comes from. And is it relevant to the task that you're trying to perform? So, data relevance means that when you're training the model using a set of data, that data needs to be relevant to the task which your model is meant to perform. So, in other words, AI doesn't need all of your data, it just needs relevant data. So, you have to find the relevant data and cut out the noise. That's what data relevance is all about. Now, let's talk about the second point. The second aspect to think about is data labeling. Data labeling is a mechanism to tell your model what is the data that it's looking at. For example, the way you would talk to a toddler and teach the toddler about the world around him or her, and you would explain saying, this is a cat or this is a dog. The same way, you need to tell your AI system what is the data that the AI system is looking at. But labeling your data is labor intensive and it takes huge amount of effort and it's usually done by humans. This is where many companies today provide data labeling services where they can take your data and do the labeling part for you. Now let's look at the third aspect. The third aspect that we're going to talk about is diversity in data. Diversity is essential because AI learns patterns. And if it's exposed to only one type of pattern, it'll only perform well in that one specific scenario. So, for example, if you have a facial recognition system that's been trained only on light skinned faces, it's not going to perform well and it's going to struggle with darker skinned faces. So, diverse data makes your AI far more inclusive, more adaptive, and more accurate. It ensures that the model reflects the world as it is, not the constrained world of a subset of the data. The next point is about data timelines. How fresh or how relevant is your data? Even if you have a vastly accurate data set, if it is not up to date, then the results that will come out from your AI system is not going to be as accurate. So you have to ensure that your data is not only correct, but it's also the latest and the best available for your AI application. The fifth point is about bias in the data. Bias is not really a technical issue, but it's a societal issue. AI learns from human generated data, and if there is bias in the core data, sometimes it ends up amplifying it. For example, the bias could be a gender bias, it could be a racial bias, economic, or even a cultural bias. As an example, one of the leading companies deployed an experimental staffing AI system that was meant to screen job applicants. And this was trained on the past data. And because the past data had a majority of male applicants, what happened was the AI system automatically started favoring male applicants and downgrading applications which had the word women in them. So obviously, this company went ahead and scrapped this experimental system because of the bias that it noticed. But overall, when you're building an AI system, you have to keep in mind that bias could play a very critical part in the outcomes. And the goal here is not to eliminate the bias, but to identify it, have a method for reducing it and designing your systems so that they don't reinforce harmful patterns. Another important thing to consider is data security and privacy. Does the data that my AI system use contain any personal or identifiable information, or does it contain any sensitive data? Are any privacy laws being violated if this data were to be something that you train your model on or something that's part of the output? And of course, from a security perspective, you need to understand about access. Would you be unknowingly opening up access to specific secure data that a user would not otherwise have had access to? So these are some of the key things that you need to consider when building your AI system. Finally, data boundaries, the limits of what AI should use. Just because data exists doesn't mean that you should provide it to your AI system. These boundaries will protect your data privacy, it'll protect your data consent. Does the data that you have, is it obtained via consent to use it for training your AI model? It protects intellectual property. It'll also protect your sensitive personal information. So, setting these boundaries ensures that AI development is responsible, it protects human rights and ethical norms. So, this is the difference between building something that's innovative or building something that's intrusive. So, in conclusion, data is the key aspect that you need to consider when you're building your AI applications. This is the foundation for trustworthy, responsible, and human centered AI. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone else and stay tuned for many more episodes about how AI really works and the real world impact that it can have. Thank you.